have to excuse me. I learned many years ago that I always need a script if I have to talk. But thank you for inviting me to participate in this celebration of the life of Charlotte Moffat's Troup. I met Mrs. T, as I always called her, in the early 60s on the recommendation of Betty Boger, which is the name you would remember, who told me that, who recommended that I come to Runnymede, that Mrs. Troup was the best writing teacher in the area, and I wanted to act on a childhood dream. So one Monday morning, I came to Runnymede Stables, then known as Runnymede School of Horsemanship, to embark on this adventure. Unfortunately, I was a timid rider and never lived up to my childhood dream of being a great rider like I always watched at the Pennsylvania National Horse Show. Little did I realize that Mrs. T would be my teacher for life. Without her, I would not have enjoyed the career and experience that came my way. She and Lee played a major role that enabled me to be inducted into the local chapter of the Pennsylvania Sports Hall of Fame for horse and sports riding. But I would use my love of horses work my love of horses into a career as a newspaper reporter, as well as a vocation of horse sports management through the Harrisburg Horse Show and the Pennsylvania National Horse Show. Through Mrs. T and Lee, I was involved with a number of Appaloosa horse clubs in the area. Mrs. T was instrumental with the founding of the Beaufort Hunt Trials in Dover, and that attracted a lot of national riders. Unfortunately, Appaloosa racing never came to Pennsylvania. I learned so much about the world of horses beyond riding, which was valuable knowledge for me in my writing. Through the years, Mrs. T had to deal with some challenges, but she met them privately and with a lot of grace. After the fire, I remembered her saying the next day, "I was humbled yesterday." All of us know that she picked up the pieces and moved to Oklahoma and started over. She taught us by example in so many ways. When students participated in horse events and the associated social gatherings, she expected them to act like ladies and gentlemen. Her students enjoyed many horse experiences, including riding with the Beaufort Hunt, many times on Thanksgiving, especially. Mrs. T and Lee's kindness enabled me to enjoy the thrill of being a horse owner. I remember one summer night, we were in Shelbyville, Tennessee for the National Appaloosa Show, and she and I were sitting in the stands, and we watched Lee ride our Appaloosa stallion to win a national title in saddle seat. That was wonderful. As Lee's interest grew to take her riding to another level, her mother made that happen. Lee wanted to move into combined training and then later into Western events. I have a great memory of Mrs. T working a very green, whispering Sam in the back ring. And that horse went on to be the 1964 Combined Training Horse of the Year, which was the same year Lee was the leading rider. As Lee's success continued in the horse world, the sports editor, I was then working in the women's department, where all women worked in the newspaper, asked me to submit stories about her success. That led me to cover shows from Leaky Roots to the Pennsylvania National Horse Show, Grand Prix events in eastern Pennsylvania, and eventually the FEI World Cup in Baltimore. When he asked me to join the staff as a full-time reporter, I suspect that invitation came because of my horse riding events. One day, I had criticized a writer in a story, and I remember Mrs. Troup coming to me or saying to me about that criticism, "Don't criticize people until you can do it yourself." Never forgot it. And I've used it in many ways and many times.
Ouch.
Well, and maybe some of those commentators on football games should learn that too.
Right. Please.
I'll never forget the day when I spotted a lame horse. Many times I would hear Lee and Mrs. Troup say, "Oh, that horse is off." And I'd look, and I couldn't see. But one day we were watching a dressage show competition in York. And we were sitting there, and all of a sudden I was watching this, and I looked up and I said, "That horse is off." And she says, "Oh, no." Well, it came around again, and she says, "You're right, it is off." And I was so thrilled that I finally had reached it. I'm almost done here. So thank you again for asking me to say a few words about a great woman who made a big difference in my life.